Stress has negative effects on people, physically, emotionally, and there are a few things as stressful as health conditions. But people handle stress in different ways. They develop different coping strategies. And scholars have identified particular categories of coping strategies. So I'm going to go through them with the understanding that we all use different types at different points. And maybe in the trajectory of an illness, we use multiple different kinds. So, one type of coping is problem focused coping. And when you're doing this, you're employing strategies that are directed at remedying a situation. So, getting tested for an illness, seeking out medical help, pursuing the kinds of strategies that doctors have suggested, whether it's medication or diet and lifestyle changes. All of those, when you're engaged in those kinds of activities, you're engaged in problem focused coping. But there are other strategies, emotional focused coping. And this is venting your frustrations, expressing emotional responses, which are different than attempts at remedying the situation. So, complaining about your illness without really doing anything to change it, not following the advice of caregivers, medical practitioners, not taking medication, changing diet, lifestyle, all of those things. Talking about it, complaining about it, but not really doing anything to move out of that space. The last type of strategy that scholars talk about are avoidance-focused coping strategies. And this is when individuals disengage mentally or even physically from threatening situations. So they avoid information about their health condition. They don't seek out solutions. They may not even go to physicians or other healthcare practitioners and divert their attention instead to other things that they find important or pleasurable. So, if you were to rank these three, which do you think is the most effective and which is the least effective? Think about it for a moment. Well, if you answered problem-focused coping as the most effective, congratulations. It's not a huge surprise because when you have an illness and you have the skills and the information to act upon and follow that advice, it's going to improve your outcomes and most likely is going to lower your stress. But what often comes as a surprise to people is that the next most effective form of coping actually isn't emotional focused coping, but avoidance focused coping. It turns out that avoidance sometimes works. Sometimes denial is really the most viable option for people. What types of people? Well, often people with terminal illnesses. Dwelling on your mortality doesn't actually help all that much. So perhaps focusing your attention on other activities and interests improves health and stress levels. Now, to a certain degree, our feelings about coping strategies are really subjective. What works for one person may not work for another. And at different stages of an illness, different strategies might be more or less effective. But these are things to be thinking about as we discuss more how people cope with illness.